guys, welcome back to Goodbye Grains and to mini meatball week. Now this is the second week of finger food, and today we're making mini meatballs with two different types of dipping sauces. So you can make the meatballs and then kind of just put like either mini skewers or I'm going to use toothpicks, that's what I happen to have. And you can kind of have that on a tray and then have two different types of sauces. This way people can dip them in either one sauce or the other, or they can mix them together, or they can eat them plain by themselves. So for the meatballs, now these are really simple meatballs. I have a ton of meatball recipes on the blog. I'll link that down below. There's at least 4 or 5. I kind of was on a meatball kick. So definitely if you want to substitute one of these meatballs out for one of those, definitely go for it. So this is some ground chicken that I bought from the store. So these are going to be ground chicken meatballs. You can use grass-fed ground beef. You could use any other type of ground meat that you want. We just have 1 egg that's going to help us kind of bind everything together. Some kosher salt and some white pepper. And then for this, we're actually just going to use regular granulated garlic instead of fresh garlic. And just a touch of coconut flour, and that's going to kind of help bind everything together. Now the two dipping sauces, one is going to be a roasted red pepper tomato sauce. So you're going to get some natural sweetness from the tomato and from the roasted bell pepper, but it's a little bit of a spin on just regular like marinara or pasta sauce. So we have, these are some crushed tomatoes. This is a red bell pepper that I actually charred on the stovetop. That you char it and then you can put plastic wrap over it, and then you can peel the charred skin away. And then it's nice soft red bell pepper. We have a little bit of dried basil and also some oregano. We're going to throw in a couple cloves of garlic and then maybe just a tablespoon or 2 of olive oil. And then for our other one, we're going to kind of do like an Asian, like pineapple-y, tomato-based type sauce. So we have, this is some tomato paste that I actually freeze my tomato paste in plastic bags, and then this way I can just portion it out because I never use an entire can of tomato paste. Some pineapple. You want to make sure that you get pineapple that is just pineapple and pineapple juice, that doesn't have any added sugar or anything. So we're not using the whole can, but that's some pineapple. We have some fish sauce that I always talk about, some coconut aminos, and then for some extra fresh flavor, we have a couple green onions, some garlic and some ginger, and then you can choose to add this or not. This is some of that chili garlic paste that I sometimes use. You can also just sprinkle in a couple of pinches of red pepper flakes, or leave it out altogether if you don't want any additional heat. So first thing we'll do is make the meatballs. So I cracked our egg into the bottom of our mixing bowl, and the first thing I usually do is add all the seasonings and stir all of that together. So we can add our garlic, our kosher salt, and some of our pepper. And I add that first, and then add also in our coconut flour. And then I'll mix all this together so that it kind of forms an even kind of like seasoning paste, and then I'll add in the meat. Now you can certainly, this is just a super simple meatball recipe. It just has a little bit of seasoning just because both of the sauces are really flavorful, but you can certainly use a different meatball recipe, another one on my blog, or come up kind of with your own kind of seasoning mix. So once all of that is combined, you can add in your chicken or whatever other meat you're going to be using. And then I usually find that it's easiest to use my hands. And we are going to mix this all together, and then we are going to make little mini balls, meatballs, and put them onto a lined kind of sheet tray or baking pan. And the reason that I line it is it's definitely easier to clean, and then you also don't have the meatballs, sticking to the bottom of a pan or something. So now you can just kind of form small meatballs. You want these smaller than like a ping pong ball or a golf ball. If you happen to have a like a cookie scoop or whatever, you can also do that, or use that in order to form balls. These aren't going to be super cylindrical, and part of that is just because I don't want to add so much coconut flour that this dries these out. So I am going to finish rolling all of these and then put them into a 350-degree preheated oven for about 15 to 18 minutes, or until they're cooked through. So first we'll make the kind of like Asian inspired sauce, and what we're going to do is put all of the ingredients into a saucepan, and then we're just going to simmer it over low heat for about 15 minutes or so to allow it to thicken and allow the sugars that are in the pineapple along with all the other ingredients kind of meld together. So first we can add the tomato paste. And this is a great recipe because you really do just throw everything into a pot and then just simmer it. So very quick, easy steps. We're gonna add some fish sauce and some coconut aminos. And then this is our ginger and our garlic. I just minced this up, along with our green onion. Now your green onion you certainly can add at the very end if you don't want to simmer it. I usually don't have any issues with having the green onion in now. And then we're going to add some of the chili garlic paste. Let me grab another thing. You can add as much or as little of this as you want. And then last we are going to add in the pineapple. Now you're gonna add both some pineapple juice and some of the crushed pineapple itself. So you kind of want to have it about even for both. And you can just pour that in. And then you can just stir this all together. And then after you're done simmering the sauce, you certainly can either use an immersion blender or, you know, throw it into a food processor if you want it to be really finely chopped, but you certainly don't have to. I usually leave it as this consistency just because the crushed pineapple already is pretty thin, thin chunks, and so it's not like you're gonna get a giant chunk of pineapple. So now that this is all stirred together, we can place it onto the stove. So lastly, we'll make the roasted red pepper tomato sauce. Now I kind of showed you before, but I have, let me see if you can see this. I have my roasted red bell pepper that I charred over the stove earlier. You could certainly buy like jarred roasted red bell peppers as well. I usually just find this easier. Once it's all charred, then you just stick it into a you know, heat-proof container and cover it with some plastic wrap, and then you can actually peel away all of the char part and you're just left with the bell pepper underneath. So I'm going to peel all of this away, and certainly becomes a little bit of a messy job. But you don't need to get every single last bit of the char off, but you want to get as much of it as you can. And this is really just kind of peeling that skin off of the red bell pepper. And then once you have most of it off, I'm just going to rest that there for a second. Then you can kind of break apart your bell pepper and put it into your food processor. Now you want to be careful. You don't want to, all the seeds and stuff that are in here, you kind of want to peel around those and then not dump them into the container. So, okay, so now that we have our bell pepper in here, we can add in our tomato sauce. Now this is actually crushed tomatoes, but you can use, if you have like fresh roasted tomatoes, you can certainly use that. This is just what I have, or happen to have on hand. And then we can add in all of our seasonings. So we have some kosher salt and some oregano. And remember, oregano is pretty potent stuff, so you want to kind of go a little easy on the oregano. And then some basil. And then just a drizzle or two of olive oil. I just think this gives it a nice flavor. And then now we are going to run this until the roasted bell pepper is nice and broken up, and this is a smooth sauce. You certainly could just pulse it and kind of make it more of a chunky sauce, but since we're using this to kind of dip the mini meatballs in, I usually think for this type of thing, a thinner sauce is a lot easier to work with. Okay, so I let that run for about 45 seconds or so, and I'll just use one of my measuring spoons. This is kind of the consistency that you want it to be. It's chunky, but it's not super liquidy, and it'll definitely, you know, hold on to the meatball when you dip into it. So now you can just pour this right into a bowl. It's nice and warm already from the roasted red bell pepper. If you want it to be more hot than just warm, you could just pop this into a saucepan over the stove, or you can also just pop it straight into the microwave if you put it into a microwave safe bowl. So not only is this game day food, but it's also a perfect weeknight or even weekend meal. It's great to get kids involved. They can help you roll the meatballs, and they also like it because they get to use the, you know, toothpicks and stuff to pick up their food. One other thing, if you don't want to make both sauces, you can obviously just make one. It may seem like a lot of ingredients to make two sauces. The great thing about these two is you can make the sauces ahead of time and then freeze them, and then just defrost them the day before, and then just reheat them over the stove right before you're going to serve them. So definitely these are great make ahead things as well. So I will see you guys next week for another finger food recipe. Bye.